Hello everyone, I'm Tommy with Studio Sense and welcome to today's video. It's going to be kind of one of those fun breaks from, just sharing specific information and about determining whether you should buy something or not. This is kind of a look at fragrances and some who are suffering a little bit in presentation, yet the juice inside the bottle is definitely amazing. All of these fragrances I definitely think are worth owning, but when we return, we're going to go over why the presentation may be suffering a little bit, maybe either ugly or awkward or both, that and more, so stay tuned. Hey guys, and welcome back. So yes, today we're looking at substance over style. Definitely lacking in style, all the bottles that we're going to be going over. I have 10 of them. Of course, there are more. I think the last one I jammed in several other honorable mentions, so let's go ahead and dive right into our very first lacking in presentation, but the juice is great kind of bottle. It's from the car manufacturer Fiat, and it is Fiat 500 for him. Now, judging from the first look, you might think, oh, this is kind of cool, but it's not that great. And what's interesting to me is if you're gonna make something look like a car, you might as well give it a nice like pearlescent finish. There's so many color options to choose from that could have been cool. Instead, they make it this flat kind of a matte gray that ends up looking like Bondo rather than a kind of a cool car. So this is a Fiat in the shop getting ready to be painted. It's not a finished product. Take the lid off very awkwardly because it's very long. The bottle kind of fits awkwardly in your hand. Not as awkward as some bottles that are in this list, but close to it. So this kind of fits a little bit in the ugly, a little bit in the awkward category, but the juice is amazing. It's a nice atomizer. Extremely masculine, very pleasant. There is not a leather note in this. All the combined notes make a wonderful, fresh, new car smell with a really nice quality leather sensation. So if you like any of that, I would highly recommend picking this up if you can find it. But again, the presentation is just a little bit lacking. Next up is a fragrance line that is an OCD sufferer's nightmare. And even if you suffer just a little bit in OCD, the Guess line of fragrances, and you can see right away why I don't care for them. These bottles, the bottles themselves are okay, right? I mean, they're a nice, kind of a rectangular or square shaped bottle. They're thinner in the middle, they get larger up top. I don't have an issue with that. It's the lids. Why in the world would you make a lid that would constantly turn when you grab it or pick it up? It's almost like a picture that hangs crooked on the wall, and even though you straighten it every single day you walk by it, at some point it's going to be crooked again, and that's exactly the way these bottles are. So why, Guess? Why is it like this? You don't have to play spin the bottle, you can play spin the lid. The juice is great. This one's okay. Seductive Homme Noir is a fantastic fragrance, always sitting a little bit canted. So this doesn't fall in the ugly category, it falls in the supremely awkward category, and they could have done a lot better for this fragrance and maybe attributable to why it's just 20 bucks for a 100 ml bottle. Now, it's no secret that Jean-Paul Gaultier is obsessed with everything having to do with the sailor, the concept of the sailor, the idea of the sailor, and that is completely obvious in the sailor stripes in everything Jean-Paul Gaultier. I have no issues with that, but I don't really want to grab some guy's junk every time I have to grab a bottle of fragrance, and that's why this is in the category of a little bit awkward. Now, it's not ugly. Like I said, I can appreciate the male form. It could have been a little bit less obvious that this is the male musculature. I remember trolling Facebook one day and watching Jeremy Fragrance, and he had a bottle of this in his hand, and he looked and he started laughing because, yeah, I guess he had his thumb over the... So that's gonna happen, but I guess it could have been worse. It could have been the statue of David. Is the statue staring at you, or are you staring at it? But I absolutely love the juice in the bottles, whether it's La Male Le Parfum, or Ultramal. It is an amazing scent, DNA, and profile. We'll always appreciate it, but thanks, Jean-Paul Gaultier, for your obsession of all things sailor. Now, this next one may be a clone of what many consider to be one of the most sexy masculine fragrances to come out in the last decade, but the end results of this looks like something left a little bit too close to a heater, and I'm referring to our Moth Hunter Intense. This bottle is one of the most awkward, and I guess some might say ugly. I don't necessarily think it's ugly, I just think it's extremely awkward looking bottle. For one, everything is offset. So you've got this bottom layer, it looks like a melting snowman. The middle layer is offset from the bottom and the top lid is offset from the middle layer. Not only that, they made it even worse with the lid. For some reason, this looks like the lid's gonna spring off, kind of like a CH Privé, and it's gonna connect like maybe a Hugo Boss, you know, the canteen bottles, but it doesn't. So you're kind of surprised when you take it off and it comes fully off. And then you try to put it on and it won't go on because there's a little divot there that has to fit perfectly for whatever reason. And I can find no cosmetic reason that the lid fits that way. It's a little bit maddening, again, if you're OCD, and even if you're not OCD. What particular reason does the lid have for fitting specifically on this bottle? And then of course you've got the supposedly masculine leather hunter going around the middle. I don't necessarily have an issue with that. It's just a little bit cheesy. But you know what? As far as our Moth bottles go, this is a little bit less bling and cheesy than a lot of them, but it still gets a knock on the awkward. However, this is a clone of, as I mentioned before, Dior Sauvage, and it is a very good Sauvage clone. It's a very good Sauvage alternative, and it's extremely inexpensive. So the juice is great. It's just a little bit awkward of a bottle or presentation. This next presentation is actually pleasing to the eye and it feels good in the hand, but the entire line suffers from this flaw. And of course I'm referring to anything Bulgari Aqua. Whether it's Aqua Atlantique, Aqua Amara, Aqua Pour Homme, you've got this big, huge hockey puck disc that ends up laying on your shelf and being hidden. Like if you have fragrances in front of this, you'll never see this on your shelf. And of course, it's got a built-in sprayer. You guys maybe thought I was affecting this to be funny or something, but the first 2 times that I used this in a list, I literally sprayed it backwards. That is very easy, and I would say it's very common to do. It fits one way in your hand with the bottom facing outward so that you can spray it. Terrible design flaw. It is a great line of fragrance. The juice inside is wonderful. It could have been an easy fix. How about putting another plastic piece on the bottom with a little kickstand on it so that when you set it on the shelf, it actually sits up like this. Otherwise, you actually have to buy an actual stand that you can tentatively sit it on. A little kickstand could have been not that much more in cost and would have been a great presentation bump up in my estimation. Another fantastic fragrance line that suffers from a presentation glitch that makes it extremely awkward, and we're actually talking about this in the GentSense forum, and that is Salvatore Ferragamo's Uomo line. Absolutely love the Uomo line. All of them are great, but if you look at the very top, that lid is pretty big, it's pretty fat, and once you take this trigger protector off, your finger literally has to fit all the way on the top, and you see how you're pulling down on the back? So you end up pulling down on the back. If you hold it just right, you can put some pressure on it, but the middle portion of your forefinger ends up pulling this down instead of pushing it down. And so what ends up happening is, did you see that? That happens with every single bottle. You have to push it really hard to get it to actually spray in a puff instead of a jet stream. So unfortunately, all of these bottles do the whole like spitting in your eye like a venomous snake. Now I'm not an engineer and I know visually it looks good, the size of the lid in comparison to the bottle or in relation to the bottle, and that's probably why they made the lid that big, but just a little bit smaller, or maybe a little bit of an indentation on the back could have gone a long way. Now some people think these bottles are ugly because of the Ferragamo on the side. I happen to actually like that. So my issue isn't ugly, it's awkward all the way with a venomous spit, a stream that it sprays, and how awkward it is to get your finger up over it. You've got the dark, rich, wonderfully long-lasting signature. You've got the sweet, dessert-like tiramisu in the Uomo flagship fragrance. And then of course you've got Casual Life and Urban Feel, both of which are really nice blue fragrances for spring and summer and for fall and spring. So a great line suffering from one awkward presentation glitch. Come on, Salvatore, you could have done better for this great line of fragrance. Now this next one to me fits the ugly category and a little bit awkward, and of course I'm referring to Moschino's Toyboy. Now this deep, dark, rich, rose-oriented fragrance isn't for every man, and you have to have a certain kind of savoir-faire and machismo to be able to carry this off, pull it off. So I'm gonna show you just a couple of thumbnails of people that I just literally took 2 minutes and randomly found on YouTube and the internet. Of course, one is immediately recognizable, my good friend Ash, and I don't know who the other guy is, but he's like, things that make you go, That's immediately how I felt when I first saw this bottle, and I kind of still feel this way. And then of course there are the ads. Now I don't know about you, but I can't really pull off leather accoutrements, including chaps and caps, like this guy can. So it just adds a little bit to the awkwardness that is Moschino Toyboy. But again, the reason it made this list is the bottle to me is so awkward, but the fragrance itself is amazing and therefore worth putting up with the strange and yet awkward presentation that makes you feel like a 12-year-old girl every time you grab the bottle, to have the actual wonderful fragrance that's inside. Now, I like a good fist bump just like the next guy, but not when it comes to pulling a fragrance off the shelf. And the near iconic bling ring that says Diesel in the OTB line of fragrances, and that is Only the Brave. Whether it's Only the Brave Street, Tattoo, Extreme, High, Wild, the entire line is a variation of a fist bump. Psh. And it looks to me like the stack of a diesel truck on the very top. Fists with various bling on them in terms of color and things, but they all lead to a little bit of an awkward presentation. To me is a solid little tropical fragrance that I really enjoy, but you don't get that from looking on the outside of the bottle. It seems to be sending a message that the juice inside the bottle does not agree with. So there's a little bit of a dichotomy going on here, and that's okay because it's enough to make our list today. Now, as a design house, I get that you want to design your fragrances, your fragrance bottles, that is, to have something to do with the fragrance inside and what the concept is and what it's representing, especially if it's an island fragrance or an aquatic fragrance. But I can think of a ton of different shapes other than the sail of a sailboat. Besides, that's already locked down with Nautica, right? With the Nautica Wave, the sailboat Nautica Classic. Of course, I'm talking about Tommy Bahama and the wonderfully awkward bottle design of St. Kitts, St. Bart's, Tommy Bahama Very Cool, Tommy Bahama, the flagship fragrance. They are all one of the most awkward shaped bottles you could ever hold in your hand. Now, it may not look like it because I'm grasping this very tightly. When you take the lid off of this thing, it doesn't matter if you're holding it like this or holding it like this. It feels like it's going to jump out of your hand. This is one of my favorite Tommy Bahama fragrances in this line. I do not like the bottles. So for such a great fragrance line, I really think they could have done better. Like maybe the shape of a piece of driftwood, maybe the shape of a boat, you know, some kind of boat or some kind of canoe or something would have been better, like a short fat canoe that fits in your hand and the top of the canoe has a sprayer on. I don't know, put me in a think tank, put me in Q&A. I'll come up with a little bit better offering than this, a little bit better design that we can all enjoy holding and using that will befit the wonderful juice that is St. Kitts. My number 10 awkward and ugly presentation, but the juice is actually really good, is actually a bunch of fragrances. Few of them I don't actually own. I have samples of Carolina Herrera Bad Boy. Now, when I was a kid and I would use balsam wood for like making model rockets and things, sometimes there would be balsam left over and I would take that and I would cut out the shape of a lightning bolt, glue it to my kids and run around the neighborhood thinking I was Flash. So to me, I've got a little bit of nostalgic background when it comes to the lightning bolt, but maybe not enough to have it sitting on my shelf. So you could have done, I think, a little bit better than a stiletto for a woman and a lightning bolt for a guy. What does a lightning bolt have to do with being a bad boy anyway? Could have been in the shape of a motorcycle. I would have dug that better. And let us not forget all things police. To Be King. To Be King is a great title because that's my last name, but a skull with a gold grill that says police on the front. I don't get it, but that's okay. It's ugly and it made our list. Next up, we have Perry Ellis 360 Red, our wonderful red tube that looks like a potential something. It is extremely awkward at times as a result of this. Even sitting on your shelf in terms of form factor, that's a very tiny surface. It falls over frequently. I could have done a little bit better than that. It's just okay. And of course, last but not least, that is Club de Nuit Intense Man, and that is a little bit blingy for my taste. I don't necessarily mind the chain with the medallion on it. Our Moth is all about the bedazzling cubic Z and all kinds of like, it's almost like you've opened up a doubloon treasure chest from Mardi Gras or something when it comes to our Moth presentations. So it's not supremely bad, but it's a little bit awkward. Personally, I like the actual bottle. Maybe if they would have just gone solid black with a medallion on the front, maybe even just the one diamond. But I will say the juice in every single one of them makes them worth owning. And again, that's the reason that this list is supremely awkward or ugly presentations where the juice is excellent that makes it worth owning. I'm sure you've got some bottles sitting on your shelf right now that are a little bit ugly or a little bit awkward, or something pings your OCD about it. Please let me know what those are in the comments below. We would all like it if you shared those. Thank you so much for stopping by and checking out my video today. It was a fun video to do. And as always, thank you so much for your support on my channel. I'm Tommy with Studio Sense, and I'll see you next time.